It's exactly 1 o'clock. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Noko Masipa. I am the chairperson on the portfolio of agriculture, economic development, and tourism. Once again, good afternoon to you all. I think the meeting is going to start. But before we start, are we correcting, Shireen?
Yes.
Okay, any apologies?
We've received a few apologies. One from Dr. Ivan Meyer, who can't be here today, and then from Mr. Anton Bredel, from Ms. Joanne Johnson, and from Mr. Gerard Gerber.
Okay, thank you. Those apologies are noted. So as before we start with our meeting, I am going to ask the honorable members to introduce themselves. But with me is Sharin van Niekerk. Sharin Niekerk. She's responsible for organizing this meeting today. I'm going to start with the members present in the House. Honorable
Dave Bryant, member of the committee.
Good day, Chairperson. Dirk Wessels, member of the committee.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Khalil Barankesh, member of the committee.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Noel Constable, member of the committee.
Good afternoon, all. Nama French Mbombo.
Thank you, honorable members. Are there members online? None. There are no one online. So with us today, honorable members, is the Department of Economic Development and Tourism, together with WESCRO and SALCA. So they are Department of Economic Development and Tourism is represented by Rashid Tofi, who is the Deputy Director General for Economic Operations. And with him is Feiruz Dasey. She is the Director, Municipal Economic Support. And with them is Mr. Lucanyo Amahana, Manager, Municipal Economic Support. And WESCRO, we have got Chief Executive Officer with us, Ronald Stenner, Mr. Sandiso Babe, who's the Chief Finance Officer, Ms. Khadija Daris, is she here today? She is the Chief of Staff, Mr. Jack Stolz, Director of Tourism, Ms. Lindy Camboris, Deputy Director, Tourism. Is he here? No, it's not here. Mr. Hotso Murudi, Deputy Director, Tourism. Is he here? No. And SALGA is represented by Mr. Sawata Manyike, Senior Advisor, Economic Growth and Investment. Thank you. And then Mr. Loiso Njamela, Advisor, Intergovernmental and Strategic Relations. Is he present? And then Councillor Untusitse Ruode Itumeleng, Executive Mayor and Small Town Regeneration, Chairperson of Pexi Kaseme District in the Northern Cape. Thank you. So these are the representative, and I note that as part of SALGA delegation, Ms. Angeline Ngwenya, Director, Spatial and Urban Development Planning, is she here? Not here. I assume that Prabin Govenda is also not here. The Department of Environmental Affairs and Development Planning, are they here? We have got Fezega Mabusela, Chief Director, Development Planning, not here. Ms. Thea Jordan, Director, Development of Facilitation, not here. Mr. Francois West of Town and Regional Planner. Mr. West, welcome. Mr. Richard Jordan, Town and Regional Planning, are you here? No. And last is Dr. Sandra Greiling, Chief Director.
Pages, Mr. Alan Rhodes from the Department of Environmental Affairs and Development Planning.
Welcome, Mr. Rose. Welcome, everyone. And I note that there are obviously some people in attendance. Would you mind introducing yourself and who you represent? At the back. Can you use the mic?
Hi, good day. I'm Marco van Zyl, representing Erimat. We sort of dabble in the R&D space in agriculture. Thank you.
Okay. Next.
Jason Nyker and Christopher Mulhall. We're here representing Smart Kasi, looking at digitalization of informal trading.
Next.
Angelo as Erimet International.
Matthew.
Hi, I'm Eswin Atraiden, and I'm just here to support the guys.
Okay, last one. Last introduction.
Yeah, my name is Chris Mulhall. I'm here on the Smart Kasi project as well.
Okay, thank you and welcome. Honorable members, we are here today because of the letter that we sent to the department at a committee meeting held on the 20th of August, 2024. The committee resolved to invite Wesgro to brief it on the work undertaken across all districts in the province, with particular reference to the initiatives and support provided to municipalities, especially in small towns. And also the committee further resolved to invite the South African Local Government Association, Western Cape, SALGA, to provide a detailed overview of small town regeneration program. This obviously we requested that it must include project background and objectives, implementation framework, selection criteria, stakeholder engagement, key interventions, and funding and budget monitoring and evaluation, impact, challenges and risk, policy and legislative implications, and case studies or pilot example. So welcome, Salga, and thank you really for responding and showing yourself up. You know, earlier we learned about the Dubai, you know, project. Maybe we will hear about the Dubai project from your presentation as well.
Can I call you to order, Chairperson?
Honorable members, so what we are going to do is that we'll give Wesgro, you know, an opportunity to present, and preferably we will want the presentation to be done within 30 minutes so that we allow members, you know, an opportunity to ask questions. So just to our guests, you are here, obviously, you know, WCPP is open for your involvement in obviously, you know, attending the meeting, but not participate in the meeting. The only meetings that you will participate is when we are out on public participation. So this is a closed committee meeting, but you are welcome to follow the proceeding as such. So we will give Wesgro 30 minutes, and thereafter members will engage and ask questions for clarity. And that will be followed by the SALCA will do their presentation as well. Before I hand over to Wesgro, I'm going to give over to the Department of Economic and Development and Tourism, Mr. Tofi, to do an opening remark. Over to you.
Thanks, Honourable Chair, Honourable Members, also to the colleagues online. Interesting, I just returned from a trade mission to Angola, and I went to the small provinces inside Angola, along the Lobito corridor, and to this town of Huambo. Well, they think we are the United States or Dubai. So basically, the reason for the mission was to look at how do we assist with trade between African countries. But I wanted to just, in my opening remarks, say how blessed we are to have the infrastructure we have, because we saw places with very little infrastructure, with systems. And what you'll hear today, honourable members, is the kind of support networks that we provide, both as a department, but also our agency, Westgrow, and of course, our colleagues at Salga with this initiative that is really about it's an initiative that cuts across regions, districts, municipalities, and even provinces. So I was on a delegation with the Northern Cape, the Eastern Cape, and the Western Cape, and we were there literally as one unit. And I wanted to use that as an example to say, I would say that the provinces of Angola probably 20, 25 years behind where we are in terms of sophistication, in terms of infrastructure, strategy, and this kind of support you're going to have here today. So I want to welcome you today. I think all the protocols have been observed, but we are on standby as well as the provincial government, Faye, who heads up our municipal economic support unit. If there are any questions around the role that we play as a department as well to support municipalities economically. So thank you very much, Chair. Back to you.
Thank you, Deputy Director General. I will hand over to CEO. But yeah, I think the Dubai story, we are really excited.
En sien nou meer snaaks iets sê. Kom ons hou maar by die orde van die dag.
You can proceed.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Good afternoon to all the members of the committee and to all the colleagues in the room. So I'm going to start off by maybe just reminding or just kind of recalling the role of Westgrow. So Westgrow is part of the broader economic leadership team in Cape Town and the Western Cape. We are proudly South African, and I do like to always emphasize that. We are responsible for ensuring that the Western Cape is positioned to compete in a challenging global economy. We have a fivefold mandate. The first is to differentiate Cape Town and the Western Cape globally as a leading regional economy. The second is to increase foreign and domestic investment into Cape Town and the Western Cape. The third is to grow Western Cape exports of goods and services. The fourth is to grow leisure tourism consideration in international and local markets. I think bearing in mind that our domestic market is quite a big tourism market for the Western Cape. And then I think that any organization supporting a changing economy such as our own requires to constantly ensure that they're future fit, to constantly evolve so that we are able to support the Western Cape economy. We're publicly funded with a private sector board. We have about 100 staff, and we're very nicely located between government and the private sector, between the present and future economies, because investors, when they approach us, they're usually approaching us about future opportunities and future initiatives. So we have a sense of what the economy looks like now and what it could potentially look like going forward. Of course, we work with a very, very broad range of local and global stakeholders. And so we have a very good footprint in all of the key markets in which we work. Our mission, vision, strategy. So our mission is together with partners to drive inclusive and sustainable economic growth and to strengthen competitiveness and create jobs in Cape Town and the Western Cape. What is really, really important is that I know that there's an emphasis on jobs, but we also have to focus on competitiveness. It's not an or, it's an and. So if you consider that we have a really, really big emerging space economy in the Stellenbosch corridor, Stellenbosch Somerset West corridor, that is about the competitiveness of the economy. So we really do look at both. Our vision is to be a leading regional tourism, trade and investment promotion agency. Our strategy, of course, we've got 8 elements there. The one is to ensure that Cape Town and the Western Cape is top of mind as a leading business and tourism destination with premium products and services. And so we do spend quite a bit of time ensuring that the Western Cape's profile globally is people must know that there's a Cape Town and the Western Cape. And I know people always ask why Cape Town and the Western Cape. Westgrove is established in quite a unique way in that it is actually it's in the Act. It talks about Cape Town and the Western Cape, and both the Western Cape and the City of Cape Town funds Westgrove. So that is really the reason for that. We've identified export priority areas to support growth for jobs. So, of course, growth for jobs, the basic premise is that it wishes to be export-led. So we've identified export priority areas, which includes the green economy, life sciences and health, logistics, food and beverages, green manufacturing, and services. What is really important also to note is that the Western Cape economy, the export is very much dependent on food and beverages. And so what we are looking at is to look at how we can diversify. So grow food and beverages, but also diversify into other sectors that could ultimately be included in the export economy. Big focus on expansion of existing Western Cape businesses. In fact, following COVID, we saw very little foreign direct investment, or rather we facilitated very little foreign direct investment, but there was a much bigger focus on working with Western Cape businesses that have reinvested and expanded. A big focus on new markets and new buys. We've probably been doing this for the last 2 years or so, and I see the president in his announcement today seems to be be saying the same thing, which is really that we're looking at China, ASEAN, India, and Brazil in the Middle East. But we obviously continue to focus on established markets like the EU, UK, USA, and Africa. We are very, very focused on, we recognize that we're not going to get substantially more or growth from the fiscus. So there is also a focus on enhancing and replicating catalytic delivery models where we are able to get bang for our buck. And we've got at the moment 3 catalytic models that we are working with. The one is Cape Town Air Access, where we have more than doubled the direct capacity into the Western Cape since the establishment of Cape Town Air Access. The second one is Cruise Cape Town. We saw in the last financial year that we had a record high of cruise visits to the Western Cape. And of course, this was largely, I suppose, facilitated by a geopolitical tailwind, which is the Red Sea. So a lot of the vessels actually pass through Cape Town rather than the Red Sea. And then a third one is an initiative that we are working with the Western Cape Education Department on, which is facilitating private sector investment into school builds into low-fee schools. So that's also working well. A big focus also on addressing and tracking systemic challenges, influencing our economic competitiveness, providing economic data, insights, and analytics for the Western Cape. And then, of course, we are on a big journey to digitally transform across all our mandates. And this is really so that we can place clients at the center of what we do. So big, big focus. The next slide just talks to the 5 areas in our business. I've spoken about the 5 mandates, and this just really overlays the Westgrove strategy across the 5 mandates. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But perhaps to focus on number 3, which is growth in Western Cape exports of goods and services. And there you will see that obviously there's a big emphasis on diversifying the export basket, as I mentioned earlier. So the strategy really is that, for all the existing markets, it's about diversifying, but for our new markets, it's actually continuing to push food and beverages. So new markets like China, India, ASEAN, there's still a very big demand and opportunity for food and beverage. We also have expanded the digital value proposition. So we have established something called the Cape Trade Portal. The Cape Trade Portal is a digital platform where we connect buyers and Western Cape exporters. We have just under 6,000 Western Cape businesses that are registered on the Cape Trade Portal, and the Cape Trade Portal is about just over 2 years old. Right now, we are continuing to obviously roll that out. I've already spoken about the new markets, and we're also working with other providers to try and link the Cape Trade Portal to other e-commerce marketplaces. So Alibaba, they all, there are different e-commerce platforms, and we're busy looking at how we can, work with them as well. We've also launched, in order to support the Cape Trade Portal, we've also launched a Made in the Cape brand, and we activate the Made in the Cape brand on quite a regular basis. In fact, last year, and I will talk a little bit more to that, but what has been quite interesting about the activation is that at last year's Made in the Cape activation, we had Reliance also participate. And what has happened subsequently is that we are going to be working in partnership with Reliance to take Made in the Cape products into India. And we're quite far advanced in terms of that. We are heading into market in September, and we're looking to expand that to also include tourism and an investment play. But I think we, as an agency in the export space, we have made great strides in terms of working with partnerships to access new markets. Going into a new market, and I know everybody says, oh, you can just move your goods from the USA to India or to China. It is really quite difficult to do that because you need to understand the supply chain. You need to understand the networks in those markets. There is a lot that you need to do in order to move goods into those markets. So we have been quietly busy with opening up those newer markets. In China, we work with Standard Bank. And in fact, we have worked on multiple missions, so we have a much better understanding of how the Chinese market works. And we have already taken Western Cape companies into China, as we will do in September when we take Western Cape businesses into India. So it is really about growing the exporter base. It is growing the buyer base. And then, of course, there's also a lot of work happening in relation to working on partnerships. Something else that I wanted to add there is that in the trade space, it's quite a complex space because you've got to understand all of the trade relationships between two partner countries, and often the issues that relate to the Western Cape aren't always top of mind in the national negotiations. And so it's very, very important that we highlight those and make sure that we ensure access for Western Cape goods and services. On the last one, I want to maybe just call out, which is the Future Fit, Relevant and Trusted West Grow. That has taken up quite a lot of work. I think you'll remember the days when we had to come and explain a qualified audit to this committee. I'm very pleased that we got our second clean audit in a row after we got after we passed the qualification. Big focus on digital transformation. If we don't digitally transform, then we are going to be left behind because the world is transforming. High performing and collaborative culture, quite a bit of work rolled out in the culture space, leadership, all kinds of things. Client centricity, and of course big focus on strategic partners, because we can't do the work we do without leveraging private sector funds, and so we've actually become quite good at doing that. So in the same way that we work with Reliance in India, we work with the Lulu Group in the Middle East, and so there's been quite a lot of leveraging of funds in across the world. Just to comment on our strategic outcomes for FY26, FY30. This is not new information. This is in our 5-year strategic plan, but it talks to the audience that we're wishing to reach, the new investments we're wanting to bring in, our export declarations, attracting 1 million new international tourist arrivals by 2030. And of course, that will be underpinned by the work that we do in terms of securing international bids, in terms of increasing the number of ship calls, increasing the number of new air routes, marketing campaigns, and of course, all of the amazing work that the team does on engaging international tourist trade. So the fact that you see the number of tourists increasing is not a passive thing. There's a lot of active work that goes on in the background to make some of this happen. So it doesn't just happen by chance. There's a whole lot of people out there making sure that these tourists come to Cape Town and the Western Cape. We will continue to focus on a clean audit. For the first time ever, we are going to be in the outer years of the 5-year cycle. We're going to be conducting a client survey. We have no idea how we're going to do that yet, so I'm quite transparent, but we know that we need to do it. And we also from this year going to be managing the entropy in the agency and have already appointed a service provider to do that. At the bottom, often we had to unpack G4J in quite extensively so that we could understand our targets. And we have got the notes for how we've arrived at that and how those numbers are calculated at the bottom. The next slide just talks to how our performance lands. So this is really, the number of investments that have been facilitated, the export declarations we've reached. We have, we've achieved an investment of 4 new schools. And obviously there's big CSI commitments this Friday. We're going to be hosting 160 people from the private sector, where we are going to be again spreading the, for us, education is not a social cost. It's an economic enabler, because if you haven't got skills, you cannot feed the economy. So there is an effort to try and get the private sector to participate in school builds and funding schools. And this is not unusual for the Western Cape. This is happening all around the world, Singapore, Germany. So it's really going out there and saying we all have to pay forward. We all have to get involved in responding to some of the opportunities. We have also landed 30 in the last financial year, 36 new conference bids. This is quite important. So we get we land a conference in the Western Cape, and obviously those people then become future tourists and hopefully also future investors. So big emphasis on that. 83 ship calls, Cape Trade Portal. I spoke about I said 6,000, but actually it's 8,000 new products and services that are on that Cape Trade Portal. For the first time ever in the history of Cape Town International, we achieved an actual 3 million two-way passengers, and that was for the first time ever. So we had a very good year. And in the period under review, Westgrow won 10 global awards. And I think that we got to see this within the context of a very limited budget. So it's really about how do we turn over every penny in order to get bang for our buck. And that's the way that we think about the money that we get. The next slide talks to taking the Western Cape to the world and bringing the world to the Western Cape. In the last financial year, we had 75 outward missions. We hosted 58 inward missions or delegations. And as a consequence, 48 countries were engaged. How does all of this land in the districts? It lands in varying degrees. So Cape Winelands, the Garden Route in Karoo, and Cape Town still attract most of the investment and the export declarations. So there is quite a bit of work that needs to be done in the Karoo and in the West Coast. And I know that there's been, some work that's been happening. But perhaps just to share If you look at the Cape Winelands, we have achieved some big investments. They're listed on the sheet there. We've also managed to achieve export declaration. We took 63 exporters from the Cape Winelands into market on international export missions. And we secured 4 conference bids in the Cape Winelands over the period under review. Leisure events we also secured. We have a fund where we support events across the districts. I do have to say that this has already been advertised for this financial year, and the CFO can just give us an update on where we are right now. But we it's always the same districts that put forward event applications, and we do need more event applications from the West Coast, the Karoo. So we have also been speaking to to the people that are able to assist there. We've also hosted travel trade in the Cape Winelands. We've created content. So with love from the locals, we included a piece on every single district. Every single district has a video. Every single district has a pitch deck. Every single district has a research piece. All of this has been shared with the districts. 47 exporters participated in the Made in the Cape Coast Advice Program, and 27 companies received export training and or mentoring through the Export Advancement Program. So this is all of this is obviously that. And if you compare Cape Winelands, where there's quite a proactive, there's a lot of infrastructure there. You'll see the I suppose the difference in relation to the Karoo. So I think that there's quite a bit of work that has to happen there. I'm not going to go through each of the districts. I think that the information is there. We try to give it as much detail as possible, so that we could share that information. So that goes Cape Overberg, the Cape West Coast, Central Karoo, and of course, where there are no declarations, there's quite a bit of work also on developing the pipeline in those districts. So quite a bit of work going on there. Cape Town, of course, the lion's share. And then I wanted to maybe just talk a little bit in a bit more detail to the trade work that happens. So on the slide, you will see that those are all of the priority markets. I've already spoken about that, and then also all of the priority sectors. I do want to emphasize that 70% of jobs, the Western Cape is a very big services economy. 70% of jobs comes from the services economy, yet we don't know a lot about the services economy. So we have probably 2 years ago, we launched a services desk. We've staffed it up with services team. We have done a big piece of research work, which is now ready for presentation. So if the committee is ever ready, we would love to come and share that, which talks a little bit more about services. We've also done services missions into market. And for the first time this year, we've also seen some services declarations, export declarations. But the trade team are doing some really, really great work. So we have hosted 9 training export sessions, and that is about the kind of amount that we do, where we work with companies in the Western Cape that are just ready to go into market, but they just, they export ready, but they're just not, they just need a little bit of I suppose, fine tuning. And we work with an international service provider to get them export ready. If they choose, they can also be mentored. 39 of those 206 exporters that we've trained, we have taken them on international missions, and they have subsequently received declarations. I'll talk a bit more to that later on. We also host events. So it's, it's like seminars on what's happening globally. So lots and lots of events were happening, for example, around AGOA and the tariffs, etc. We also hosted 45 missions, and that impacted 292 exporters. So imagine 292 people being taken into market and meeting with businesses in those respective markets. Some of the markets, obviously, a very, very big focus on Africa and Europe, and increasingly we're seeing missions into the Middle East, the East, etc. I'm going to, and then as I mentioned earlier, we've got a lot of organizations that support us in the space that we've built up over a substantial period of time. So it's Nedbank, Mazars, Standard Bank, DHL, the Lulu Group, SIPO, which is a Swiss organization, USAID, Brand SA, and then, of course, the National Film and Video Foundation. So these are all organizations that we partner with into market, and we leverage some of their funding as well. And then I've just got the two last slides, a little bit more impact slides, and this just talks a little bit to some of the, just I've spoken about the Made in the Cape and the 37 buyers from 16 countries. Now, to get these buyers, and these buyers come from the Middle East, they come from China, they come from ASEAN, and they come into the Western Cape. We show them around, we show them what the Western Cape looks like, how it works, and then we introduce them to Western Cape businesses. And it's a little bit like a venue where we've got B2B meetings, and these are all organized. So this particular event had 500 B2B meetings. Our next event happens in February, and of course, I thought it might just be good to also just get a sense of what the impact looks like. Last slide, impact, the Export Advancement Program, I've spoken about it, but this also just gives a little bit more information as to where these trade missions were, what the kind of declarations were from which markets, and which of the companies that were supported. Chair, I'm going to leave it there for now. I'm more than happy to take any question.
Thank you, Ms. Stana, for the sterling work that you are doing at Wesgro. Really, honorable members, the presentation of the Wesgro is before us for interrogation. But before I hand over to members by show of hands, I just want to ask, I think the challenge that we see there is that Central Karoo it's not really seen any investment. I think maybe the question is what is the timeline in terms of because I don't see, is it for only the financial year of 2025 or 2024-25? I think just that clarity, if I can get that. But the other thing that I wanted to ask is the Karoo lamp, the geographical indicator. Is that a benefit? Maybe the Deputy Director General can answer that, whether really the Karoo lamp geographical indicators that they have gotten in terms of certification, if it's really an advantage or it's not really providing much of export opportunities and so forth. And lastly, from my side is on Wesgro. I know you're hosting quite a lot of events around city of Cape Town. Is there a possibility that some of your engagement with the buyers, you can take to the Central Karoo or to Garden Route District, just to really show them the other part of the Western Cape, and I think that way it might help a bit. And I'm saying this because I put a question to the minister regarding the BPO opportunities within the Central Karoo. And in short, the answer, long as it was, it just highlighted that the challenges is that there has to be business, rationale to really do such activities. So that's really in short. It's not a question of, a satellite network or infrastructure, but there must be, good rationale, accommodation, and all those kind of stuff. But I think exposing to some of your buyers, to this part of the world, I think it will have quite a great deal. Thanks. Honorable members, are there hands? I see Honorable Bryant and Honorable. But before I also give you the opportunity, are there hands online? Okay. And Honorable Ngondlo has also joined us online. So there are 3 hands for now. Honorable Bryant, over to you.
Thanks, Chair, and thank you to Ms. Stander for the presentation. I think the thing that stands out mostly for me, and you've mentioned this already, Chairperson, and I think we've mentioned it previously during presentations, is whilst there is a lot of really fantastic work being done, the disproportionate impact that it's having on the different regions is quite stark. And whilst definitely the majority of the economic activity in the province is concentrated in specific areas, everybody is contributing to this as the money is coming from the broader provincial fiscus. So if we look, for instance, at the Garden Route and Klein Karoo, it's 0 in new investments. I don't know if that's 0 million or if there's, you only start measure from millions, but I don't know, maybe it's a couple of thousand, but is 0 there, 0 for Cape Overberg, 0 for Cape West Coast, and that really does jump out. And I'm not trying to highlight the negatives, but we're doing our oversight role here. I think we have to highlight that. And then if we look then at the Central Karoo, for instance, as well, not a heck of a lot going on there. I mean, we've got Poppies Roosterbrood, but I think that's about it for content creation. And having been up there for our State of the Province address, I think some of you were obviously with us there as well. There's a lot going on there. Fantastic people, really, really thriving communities, beautiful nature reserves, all sorts of things that are going on there. So I really think there's an enormous amount of potential, and I think we owe it to the people of the Klein Karoo and the Garden Route and other regions as well to see what we can do. And lots of things seem to be happening, but it's not translating into that investment. Then just in terms of the NOAA group or the NOA group, this renewable energy project, 4.9 billion in new investment for the Central Karoo. What's the role of Wesgro in that project? So what is it, a facilitation role? I'm just trying to work out, how Wesgro is directly involved in that project. And then the last question is, you've spoke of the new strategic relationships and you've mentioned US aid. Obviously, that's a bit of a contentious issue at the moment with the President of the United States having cancelled funding for US aid projects. Is that in response to that, or how is that relationship working? Can you just expand a little bit on that? Thanks.
You, Honorable Bryant. Honorable Brinkhuis.
Thank you very much, Chair, and yes, thank you very much to Wesgro for that most insightful presentation. Yes, it looks very exciting, the work that Wesgro is doing all around the province and even internationally also. I hear that you mentioned a lot about China and you mentioned a lot about India. Obviously, their population, they've got the numbers. And like you rightfully mentioned, it's not that easy to get into those markets. We're also looking at them as alternative markets currently because of what, my colleague has mentioned, what is happening in the West currently. I've recently met with the new ambassador of Pakistan in the last couple of days. and they have brought to our attention that there's a very big investment delegation from Pakistan coming to South Africa in the coming days. Simple question is that is Westgrow willing to meet some of these delegates? I'm willing to share some of the information with Westgrow, and I have some of my colleagues from Cape Town that is currently present here in the meeting. They represent a number of companies in Cape Town, varying from agriculture to IT and many different industries. They are present here today. So yes, if Westgrow is prepared to meet with this delegation, then it will be looking at our current unemployment, historical unemployment rate in South Africa, and obviously in the Western Cape also. Yes, our Minister of Agriculture has mentioned that, you know, our focus will be job creation in the Western Cape. So yeah, if Westgrow is prepared and willing to meet with this delegation, then it will be very much appreciated. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Brinkhays. Once again, you are welcomed. I was advised by my procedural officer that this is not a closed meeting. Yes, it's not closed in the sense that it's open to public, but you are not allowed to participate. Maybe my wording was not right, but we are open to welcoming the public to observe what we do as members of parliament. And really thank you once again for showing interest, especially in the subject that we are busy with. As Honorable Brandt has indicated that, you know, there are really opportunities out there that we need your involvement in those opportunities. With those words, I just want to hand over to the CEO and obviously the Deputy Director General. There's still two hands of Honorable Ngondlo and Honorable Derek Vessel, which they will have the second round bite. Is there do you want to add something onto your question? Okay, you can go, and then we allow them to answer, and then we go to the second round.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I would really appreciate it if, I mean, some of our guests and our visitors, they've come, you know, from very far in the Western Cape, and some of them have traveled extensively just to make it for today. I would really appreciate it, Chair, if, you know, with your indulgence, if some of them would release the opportunity, you know, or burning questions to pose to some of the officials here today. Through you, Chair, if you would allow it, then we would really appreciate it if they could maybe add a question or a comment. But through you, Chair, thank you very much.
Once we finish here, we've got some refreshment at the back, and they are welcome to interact with the officials. And obviously, if there are really burning issues, the CEO, I'm sure, is here, and the DDG is also here to really engage. Over to the CEO and DDG.
So thank you, Honourable Chair. Just briefly, I want to tackle one or two questions and then hand it over to the CEO. So I have received information about the Pakistan delegation, and I've handed it through to international relations to see how we can welcome them. I'd certainly like to meet them, as we do with every international delegation. So it's on the list of been sent through to international relations, and then generally, if part of that is about trade and investment, the Westgrow teams will be engaged accordingly. To answer your question, Honourable Chair, about the Karoo lamb, I mean, I'm not the expert on it. I would suggest we ask that of the Agriculture Department, but I know that just like you have champagne or Parma ham or something that comes from a particular district, the Karoo lamb has that, what they call the protected geographical indication, this PGI, based on the fact that, and it's not, as I said in my introductory remarks, it's not related to our province. It's the fact that the geographic area, because of its unique arid landscape, gives Karoo lamb a special flavor. And that's why I like rooibos tea. It's something that we should brand. I think it's got the potential to be, like I said, something like champagne that when you have Karoo lamb globally, it should be from here. And I think I can just indicate that driving investments into all of our provinces are on our strategy. I will leave it to the CEO to reply. I mean, the particular municipality of the Karoo, is 0.05% of the economy. So we have to bear in mind the sort of the economic potential of that region. It's not based on an unwillingness to do it, but it's 0.05% of the population and of the GDP of our economy. And hence it's a tough area to attract investment to when you have that kind of levels of buying power and things forth. But CEO, I'll hand over to you. I think the other questions were not specifically for me. I'll hand it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DDG. I think I want to start off by I think the acknowledge that there's a lot of work that has to be done in the Karoo, I think, and the West Coast. So those are the two, that are definitely on the radar. Okay, so I think let us start there. Then I want to say the second point is really that by preparing this information in this way, in a transparent way, it allows us to see what the impact is, and it allows us then to also refocus. So just to give you a sense, so for example, a lot of the work that we're doing right now is to generate leads, because an investment doesn't just happen overnight. It's hard work. You've got to identify a willing buyer and a willing seller. There has to be initiatives in the region that you can position and sell. So it's so I think that's the first thing. And then I think the second thing is that it takes 3 years to convert. So nothing that you're seeing here today was something that we started in the financial year. It's stuff that's been coming on over the 3-year period. So I think that's the first thing. And maybe what I am going to ask the team, and we did it in prior years, is to actually have a look and give a sense of the pipeline, because the pipeline is an indication of what is coming a little bit further down the line. And we can certainly do that. What we've also done with our budget. So we've had a look to say, okay, fine. So, in the event space, for example, if you look at the different regions, so now, and I was hoping this was a closed meeting, but just to give you an idea. So I've indicated, just in terms of event funding, for example, we don't fund events taking place in Cape Town. We only fund events in townships in Cape Town. So we've shifted previously a big part of our events. A big part of our events money was going to Cape Town. We've said no, that's not going to be the case. So if it's an event in Cape Town, it has to be in a township. Okay. Similarly, we have said that for all the districts that initially we at the point now where a lot of the money went into the winelands, we say no, can't be. It has to be spread at least in the first instance equally across the districts, which we're managing to achieve. But we can only achieve it insofar as there is a willing partner on the other side. So when we did the advert or the applications for events funding, we're not getting sufficient funding requests from the Karoo or the West Coast. So this is probably, where I've also said to the teams that we need to go and make sure that we work with the districts and try and get, we need to think about that. Okay, so that is obviously, I think the development role sits with DDAT. So I'm sure that, Jacques will be able to also give a sense of some of the work that they're doing to try and make sure that there are projects that come for funding from the Karoo and the West Coast, just as an example. With respect to, you will see that we have also very, very clearly focused on making sure that with our export advancement program, that we get businesses from across the districts. So it's no longer, it's like we actually have to say, please, can Can you send these businesses? Because we don't actually go out and find the businesses. We just don't have the capacity for that, but we can create the opportunity. And so that is certainly what we're doing through the EAP training, through all of the events that we hold to work with exporters or potential exporters, and then obviously we go into market and we take delegations into market, and that's very, very powerful. So I was in market recently in China, and my team was sitting. It's like as simple as when you land there, you need to get a Chinese SIM card, because if you don't, you're not going to know what's going on in the world, because their system, the platforms are completely different, and you'll have the West Coast staff sitting there helping every exporter buy their SIM card, download it, so there's quite a lot of actual support that happens. Chair, with respect to your question on hosting events around Cape Town, I think that often these events are quite big, and we have now done a piece of work where we've looked at all of the event spaces across all the districts. And often our events are quite big, so it's very, it's not, and you don't just need the event space, the conference space, you also need the rooms, so the delegations must be hosted somewhere. But certainly what we can consider, and typically people come for 2-3 days, so we must see if we can consider, maybe taking them one of the visits, maybe go into the Karoo. We can definitely contemplate that. I also, and again, this is quite important in terms of the lamb, the Karoo lamb. So we are, for example, in the process now of talking to one of the bigger airlines to see how they can, onboard. They want to, I suppose, use Karoo lamb on board. So we do that. We work with that. We try our best to also try and get. So that is a current conversation that we are currently having in relation to. My team are passing me notes here frantically. Yeah. Okay. So that I think is correct. I think it was Member Brian to ask the question. No, we are not. We haven't responded to this current situation with the US. So we've already been doing this for the last 2 years. So our traditional markets have been the UK, USA, Europe. Those are the Western Cape's traditional markets for tourism, trade, and investment. And we identified 2 years ago that was a risk, because not a risk, that there was an opportunity to grow into other markets, and particularly because of G4J, 1 trillion rand economy. You've got a triple export, so you're not going to be able to achieve that from a market that's already saturated. And so this is when we already started the process to look at other markets where there's demand for Western Cape goods and services. So obviously, if you look around the world, your ASEAN market has got the biggest GDP per capita in the world. It's fast growing. It's very, very organized. That's your ASEAN, your Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore. I mean, they are already trading extensively amongst themselves, very organized grouping. China is also an interesting one, massive market, but very difficult to understand. So we've been kind of working in that market for quite a while. Middle East is really want our food and beverages. So there's quite a lot of work going on in the Middle East as well. And then India probably be a little bit furthest behind, because unlike China is very much built on government to government. It's about accessing government relationships, whereas India is very much private sector relationships. So we are building that, and we're going to build that with Reliance. Reliance will help us with that. What better way than to work with a partner that knows the environment? So no, the answer is we're not responding to the current geopolitical context. We were responding to the Western Cape government strategy of tripling exports. And in that way, I suppose, that was what the trigger was. So, since the G4J, we've obviously created a team that looks after China team. So we've got teams inside of Westgrow that understand those markets intimately. And that's what it's about, because we can't take exporters into market when we don't understand what's happening in those markets. With respect, member, with respect to new markets, yes, you spoke about new markets, and so the board kind of requires us all the time. They sort of say focus, focus, focus. And so even though we've identified China and India, doesn't mean that another market, if there's an opportunity. So we're not going to not consider other markets if there are opportunities. So as the DDG indicated, all international requests typically go through the Premier's office, and we then get called on to support. I haven't yet received a request from the Pakistan delegation, but I think the DDG has. So we meet all potential investors. There are one or two exceptions which I won't mention here, but yes, we definitely do. Yeah. Did I cover all the? Oh, Noah, the Noah group. Did you want to take that?
Thank you, Chair. The Noah Group is a wheeling and energy trading company. It entered into it reached financial close for the Iswati Moya wind farm located within the district. I think it's a 140 megawatts wind farm. The construction began at the beginning of this year, and NOAA is an off-taker for that power from that wind farm. The role that Westgrow played is to connect them with stakeholders in the ecosystem, and also providing the market intelligence and facilitating the relationship with municipalities and making sure that the approval processes happen quicker, and wherever there were blockages, we then work with partners in the ecosystem to unlock those, to make sure that that project lands with ease. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. DDG, do you want to make a...
I want to add just two brief things. Yeah. The one, I think, Renelle, was, I think the work you do across Africa is quite impressive. So you mentioned North America, Europe, now the increasing attention on Asia, and then the attention on this halal market, which is about 1 billion consumers across probably 30 or 40 countries around the world. So it's not just Middle East, it's even in the USA, there might be a halal market, or Malaysia, Indonesia, so there's that. But I think the work you do in Africa, which you didn't mention, is from your one slide, you can see how many both inbound and outbound, including the one I did to Angola, how many trade missions we do. So we do not see Africa with the AFCTA coming up. It's a massive market for us. But on the scale of like the top ones, as you know, just purely on scale, Europe and the USA still have been traditionally the core markets. Yeah. I briefly wanted Jacques to just mention, because in addition to the trade and investment work that Westgrow does, we do some developmental work, and our tourism development program in particularly had some success across all the regions. In fact, we made it exclude the Cape Metro because we said it gets a lot of support and money from ratepayers and from the city of Cape Town. So we focused our entire tourism development program on non-metro. And Jacques says he has shared that recently with the standing committee, but maybe just here to reiterate again in this context, that spread. Jacques?
Can I maybe ask Jacques, can I allow two members to ask the question? And then maybe, there might be areas that you might want to address as well. The first one will be Honorable Ngontlo, but before I hand over to Honorable Ngontlo, I just want to welcome Dr. Greiling, has just arrived. Dr. Greiling is responsible for if I'm correct, monitoring and evaluation for the municipalities. And I've also seen Mayor Mabusela is also from the local government, Chief Director, Development Planning. Welcome. Yeah, am I correct, Dr. Khreile?
Municipal Performance Monitoring and Support, Chair.
Thank you. Welcome. Honorable Ngondlo, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon to colleagues and everybody. Thank you for the presentation from the CEO. Also, I think let's appreciate the breakdown per the districts, which is something that we've always been interested to understand, and it's always encouraging to actually see that the departments or the entities are listening to the issues that the members are asking. So I want to appreciate that because I think drilling down to the regions helps all of us to actually see how do we assist in ensuring that we put on the radar screen the investment effort and opportunities that are in the regions, so that I think where there are gaps as they are raised in the likes of West Coast and Central Karoo, it means some work must be done there. And I think as members will be able to do through our oversight, how could we assist those two municipalities? Having said that, Chair, I think one, I just wanted to ask, and I think the DDGs spoke to this issue of the halal. At some point here, there was a whole range, a hype about the halal market and what needed to be done to assist, potential businesses, with accreditation and the like. So one does not know what has actually happened out of that and what has came out of that investment, because yes, we were told that there is a lot of interest from countries, that are more taking halal products. So for me, I'm interested to know what has happened to that particular area, of trying to ensure that we leverage with companies and products, particularly, your meat products and related that are halal. So I think it's one issue that is important to me, because like what was raised with the geo indicator of Karoo lamb, similar, we've got rooibos, we speak about these. And for me, it's one thing at a marketing level to speak about them, but I think it's the translation of rands and cents, to the actual local economies, that I think we're interested in. So maybe somebody could just bring me up to speed to the level at which that work on the halal certification, the halal markets, is still on the cards, and work is being done to help those that want to participate in that space through, the export programs and the likes. The other one, Chair, is that, again, I appreciate, I think, what Westgro has started to be doing to intentionally, go into the township spaces, because the number of tourists, and all of this investment is not necessarily trickling down into, the broader geographies in the city, let alone in the other districts. And that is something that we ought to do, so that the benefits of this effort must actually get into those spaces, because indeed what we are looking for is jobs, is economic activities, that actually start to reshape the social fabric that is going to be pronounced in the municipal economic review reports. So it's important, and I want to appreciate that intentionality, I think, from Westgro in as far as that is concerned. And to ask, especially in the other districts, like we speak about West Coast, we speak about Central Karoo, is the extent to which tourism, education. And I'm saying this because I think we know that in the space like Karoo, there is the whole notion that has been spoken about there of the gas exploration there. There are big companies wanting to come into that space. We know in the West Coast, as an example, that there is some level of mining that is taking place there, let alone also the ocean, that we have there. And the extent to which also, we can be able to sort of amplify education related tourism, that also would have benefits to the local economies, especially, the learning environment, be it in the schools, for young people that are still in the schools, also including, the TVET colleges. So I'm just contributing that into the space. And my last one, Chair, I want to understand from the CEO what should be, the agility that gets to be brought forward in as far as the turnaround. You speak about, that it's not a click of a finger, to move goods, from one market to the other. That is correct. And perhaps you may need to even just give us, maybe a scenario to say, if we look currently with what you are sitting with the US market, what will it take the next 10 years, the next 20 years, and what agility do we require? Because diversifying our markets, I think, is something that actually we need to put boots on the ground and do with speed. Because I think what is currently happening has actually demonstrated that you can't necessarily always be sitting and being, comfortable with one part, of countries as your main markets. You need to try, and spread your cake across. Yes, the logistics thereof becomes important because you need to know if you are able to carry that. But I'm interested in this question because here is a reality that we're sitting with, and we know as the Western Cape economy, we are amongst the ones that are going to be mostly affected unless there are going to be any waivers done by the US when it comes to some products from the Western Cape. I do not know at this point, but I'm just saying the reality of the geopolitics is here with us. So that's why I'm asking what agility is required, to try and look at the new or the other markets that are knocking on our doors, but also preparing domestic markets, which is now the locals in the Western Cape, to be able to take up these opportunities. Because one also find a number of both big and small companies, small ones wanting to export, big ones saying, hey, we've got this sort of offtake agreement, but we can't even be able to supply because the orders are very huge and we do not have the capabilities, as companies just here in the Western Cape on things like chilies, on things like, the cannabis now that is out there. So that's why I'm asking, what would it take in terms of that agility, which I know is not only going to be answered by Westgro alone, because it means Westgro working with the economic development and others in the value chain would need to be able to respond to that necessary response that as a provincial economy we require. So those are the issues that maybe if CEO maybe and also DDG can speak to. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Nkondlo. I recognize Honorable Vessel, and I've seen the hand of Honorable Bryant, who also want to do a follow-up, will followed by Honorable Bryant. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Let me start off by saying, firstly, well done to Westgro and the department. The way that you brand Cape Town and the Western Cape is obviously hugely successful. That being said, it is immensely worrying that areas like the Garden Route, etc., has got zero new investments currently. Especially there's a harbour, there's an airport, there's airport expansions. George is the fastest growing secondary city in the country. We've there's EAs for solar, there is wind farms, there is berry exports, there is citrus exports, there is mega farmers. Having zero investment is something that one actually cannot comprehend. So I think that is for me a worry, and that gets to the flow of things. And here's my question: is who is the people that should get Wesgrow involved? Is Wesgrow actively looking to enhance the footprint within those districts as well? Or is the reliance there on either the municipality or the district municipalities to contact you and to say, hey, this is the route that we want to go into? So I think that is question number one. Question number two then is, you mentioned that Wesgrow received their funding from Cape Town and the city of Cape Town and the Western Cape. Does Wesgrow receive funding from the B municipalities as well? I.e., do they pay you a fee for some other services or not? Or from the district municipalities? And then I know that there was a sort of a shift, and I did quickly browse through one of your documents in early 2025, where there seems to be a reliance on the district municipalities to determine the direction for the area or the district in terms of tourism, etc. Do you think that is a viable and working sort of structure? Especially if we consider something like Garden Route District Municipality, you look at George and you look at Oudtshoorn and you look at Plettenberg Bay and you look at Hessequa. I mean, those are really four totally opposite sort of towns with their own economies, their own sort of vision. So does Wesgrow think that is a viable way of getting that right? Then with regards to the events, and so obviously I'm from George, so I'm a little bit biased, but I want to I want to say that the HSBC Sevens, as you know it now in Cape Town, started in George. George has got the biggest wheelchair or road disability event in the Southern Hemisphere. It's got currently the biggest trail running event in the Southern Hemisphere, and it was voted the best in the world, actually, by the UTMB. But yet there's if I looked at the events that Wesgrow partakes in, it also between Plet and Mossel Bay, you've got 7 of the top 10 golf courses in South Africa. Again, there seems to be a disconnect of the opportunity and what either this flow is not working, or there seems to be a disconnect of what is happening there and on the ground, and what is the opportunity that presents itself, and what is in actual fact coming to you or coming through the pipelines. So that is just comments and questions from my side.
Yeah, we could hear the passion coming out of, Kwagga, you can hear that's a real Kwagga. Over to you, Honorable Bryant.
I'll be very quick. Just 2 things. The first one, I think, sorry, I didn't say it very well, but I was referring to USAID with the D, USAID. No problem. No, it's probably the way I've said it. So just in terms of the key trade offerings, new strategic relationships, where it's mentioned there, because obviously with the massive cuts and the freeze on USAID funding, how does this relationship work And that's what I'm saying. Is this a new strategic graduate as a result of what's currently going on? That's what I was referring to. And then just very quickly, when you mentioned funding of events must be in the townships, does that include the Cape Flats and areas like that, or is it how do you define what comprises as a township? How does it get to that area, and how would it work, for instance, if somebody from a township wanted to host an event in an area that was outside of the township? That wouldn't be allowed. Okay. Anyway, thanks.
Over to you, DDG. I see you quite excited to give us all the answers that we are looking for.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, honourable members. Honourable Member Nkondlo, the halal market is an interesting one. When I joined the department in 2017, it was part of the government strategy, one of the three major pillars. And one of the things about our economic department is to intervene where there's a market failure or an opportunity, and then step away when you don't have to anymore. So when we did a phenomenally deep dive on halal as an opportunity, and that included, I went to the World Halal Expo in Malaysia, and we started a halal trade fair for 3 years. But after more or less around 2020, just around COVID as well, we managed to entirely activate all abattoirs, dairies, businesses around the Western Cape around the potential of the halal market. So without our ongoing intervention, I just made a quick Google ChatGPT search, but literally every abattoir in the Western Cape, and these are not sort of Muslim ones, Tommy's, the Karoo Lamb Abattoir, Robertson one, the one in Paarl, the one in Beaufort West, are all halal certified, because we managed to show them the economic potential of it. And then I got another list here of all the dairies that are all halal certified now: Fair Cape, Lancewood, Leeuwenbosch, almost in every municipality, Mariatsburg. Everyone has now seen the potential of it, and then we step away. We literally don't have a program, certainly as the government, because now the connections have been made. The halal certifying bodies are aware of the potential, and we've made the connections. What did continue now is that the Westgrow team has a dedicated person who now takes businesses on trade missions. So they have programs where they go to relevant trade fairs around the world, taking those businesses there. But there was this big project, if you remember, about the idea of a halal hub. After seeing those halal hubs in Malaysia, we realized that it's not a necessary requirement for halal to become known in the Western Cape to have a special hub. It's a bit like saying to Lancewood dairies that in order for you to be halal, you must come into our new hub that we've created, like in Epping somewhere. So this idea of a special hub, we did a lot of time, we studied it, and the Western Cape is so small that it literally is a halal hub. No reason to open up a special thing with walls around it and call it a halal hub, because the guy who's in, whatever, Lucerne dairies, wherever they are, they just are there, they're certified, and the markets are open. So I wanted you to understand that. I think we've totally positioned the Western Cape as a halal hub globally, and businesses, whether you are, no matter what your sort of background is, people understand the potential of it and are all taking advantage of it, from Robertson Foods, and every wine farm now has a sort of non-alcoholic brand because they realize as a massive market that potential of that. I wanted to mention for Member Wessels, we had a municipal economic tourism and trade summit last month at Godini for 3 days. We invited every municipal manager, every mayor, and their economic person. And for 3 days, we gave them literally the kind of ABC of how to identify opportunities in your municipality, and then who are the people that can help you make that happen. So it was a very successful project, and perhaps Fayrouz Darcy can indicate when we'll get a sort of report or speak a little bit to that. But it was an extremely successful event. I think we were able to point out to people. So, for example, if you're in Mossel Bay or George and you've got a campsite that's earning you no income, how do you monetize that? How do you make sure? And maybe Jacques can speak a little bit to your program that we've done. So maybe it's a good opportunity now for Jacques to respond on the kind of programs we're doing. But we realized we needed to do exactly what you're saying. Let everyone in every municipality understand who they need to talk to. Let me just see if I have a just a quick comment I want to make on the events CEO of West Grove. It's again a case of we step in where we need to step in. You know, if Neisner Marathon comes to us and says they have 14 million rands of sponsorship, would we want to sponsor them? We just, if I give them 500K, it would be West Grove's whole event budget. And it wouldn't help them because they should go to Pick and Pay or Discovery Health or something like that. So maybe Renelle can explain how small our budget is relatively. And it's important to note, just because we don't support it doesn't mean it's not thriving. So the George area, these marathons, they're getting well supported. And the reason for focusing on the township is that the city of Cape Town has this massive program with budgets that have got 6 zeros behind them, supporting events in the Western Cape. And we're just trying to step in and say where, for example, township businesses. So we focus on ones that are township, ones that are geographically isolated, and ones that seasonally will bring us events where, so we're not going to sponsor an event in the middle of the high season. If you start a marathon in the middle of February, we're like, we don't really need to support you. You're going to probably do well. But if you start an event or a conference and it's in the off season, that's when we find that interesting and we'll step into support. So either geographically or seasonally out of the regular spot. Jacques, should I hand over to you to comment? Thank you. And then we can go to the CEO. Thanks.
Can I just, my procedural officer, she's responsible for the procedure. So I'm being reminded that our time is running out. Can we just try and be succinct and keep it to the point so that we can get to Salka? They also, waiting anxiously to give us the good news. Over to you, Jack.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just very quickly, through the Tourism Growth Fund, we have supported 30 projects across the province since 2020. Mostly tourism infrastructure projects, but we have supported individual businesses as well with things like equipment. And I think the member from George will be pleased to know that the Garden Route had 13 projects funded through the Growth Fund, followed by Cape Winelands, 6, Overberg and West Coast, 4 projects each. City of Cape Town, 2 projects, and Central Karoo, 1. I think we obviously recognize the challenges around the Central Karoo, and it's really about capacity that we're not receiving applications. So I've had engagements with the municipalities and the local tourism structures to say we will go to the Central Karoo and work with the stakeholders so that they understand the funding opportunity available through the fund, but also other national support schemes available because there are other tourism funds available. So that is something that we've prioritized from our side. And then lastly, just to add that obviously we have quite significantly increased our investment in tourism skills development. And our approach here is to move around the province. This year, for example, we're taking customer service training to Prince Albert and towns like Albertina. We are rolling out an astrotourism guiding course in Weskus and Central Karoo. But again, with the Central Karoo, we had 6 applications for the program, whereas we had something like 23 applications from West Coast. So those kind of things then create challenges because it's not viable for us to send a trainer to Prince Albert if we only have 6 candidates. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Jack. CEO, can I hand over to you?
Be as concise as possible. I'd like to start with the question that Member Nkondlo asked, because I think that's probably quite important. So if I just look at, and it relates to the question that talks about the agility that we're required to move from one market to the other. So if you just take, and I just want to list a couple of things. So the first is obviously there are issues like non-tariff barriers. So each country has got its own requirements for sanitary and phytosanitary measures, their own requirements for packaging, labeling, and language requirements. And then obviously there also rules about where they are prepared to buy from, for example. So a seller selling that would typically sell to a market in the USA can't just divert to China. It's just not, it's just not possible. Then buyer relationships take time. You can't just send the goods to the port and expect it to be sold. You've got to sell it to a buyer. So you need to know who are the Chinese buyers, who are the buyers in those markets. So I think it's not necessarily it's not necessarily that simple. They obviously would want to make sure that the product is consistent, that it's compliant, etc. Then you also need to make sure, because different markets have got different requirements. So for example, wine exports to India, it's 100% tariff, right? It might be 0% to China, but that hasn't yet been negotiated. And right now it's 30% to the US, whereas previously it was much lower. So it depends on what the tariffs are on the respective sides. Then it's also about your trade routes, your the shipping routes, the cold chain capacity. So is there enough? So it's not, so obviously it's not. And then of course your regulatory and your institutional bottleneck. So I think you have to. People don't just buy a product from South Africa. You've got to market it. You've got to be in market. You've got to have local suppliers. So there's a whole lot of things that goes into moving from one market to the next. It can take, I'd say, because we as Wesco already in year 2 of what we're doing, but I'd say it could take another 2 to 3 years. So it is obviously within the circumstances, and there's a lot of work that obviously national government has to do to open up some of those markets as well. So I think that is really on that. But I think the question probably is really a fundamental question. So it is not just about diversifying markets. So if you look, and the DDG spoke about Africa, US, EU, and Europe. I mean, those are the key markets. It's about diversifying markets, but it's also about diversifying products. So our economy is very, very reliant on food and beverage. And so going forward, we're going to have to also consider what are the other potential export markets. Right now, services is a big export. So we for example, we export education services. So I'm not sure if you're aware, but in the Western Cape, there's a 3 billion rand what's it called? EdTech economy, where Harvard, Oxford, INSEAD, all of their university material are produced right here in the Western Cape. And there are many other examples of where we export services. So there's obviously been quite a bit of work. That's the first set of questions. The second set of questions is really, it relates to what Member Constable asked, and it relates to mandates and about, where do the mandates reside for some of these things. So in each of the districts and municipalities, there's something called the local economic development team or unit that's funded. And that is almost like I suppose the Wesco, so it is a little bit, if you can imagine, marketing the supermarket, but each store inside the supermarket still has to do the work around what they're selling. So there's only a limit to what Wesco can do. We kind of let everyone know that, hey, the Western Cape and Cape Town is a really good place to be. But then it's also up to each district and region to also come to the party, and there's work that needs to be done. There's work that needs to be done there. And so I think that it might also be good for each district to come and present on what it is that they're doing. And that might be something that is also worth looking into. Westkro only receives funding from DDAT and from the City of Cape Town. 70% of our funding, no, 75 comes from DDAT. 77% comes from DDAT, and then the rest comes from City of Cape Town and the private sector. So we have all of our catalytic projects are co-funded by the private sector. And we also run it in a different way to the way that we run our other projects. I have, as a matter of interest, I have spoken on more than one occasion to the district saying, I'm very happy for a district person to be co-located inside of Westkro. We can create the space, the opportunity, and then they've got adjacency to all the investment team, the trade team. They know when things are happening, they can be on those missions, etc., etc., but funded by the districts but co-located inside of Westkro. That we have also, other models have not worked to date. So that is just, I don't want to comment. I think maybe the DDG can comment on whether, whether the current structures work and whether the current funding works. I think I will do that at another time maybe, but not today. I've been
CEO,
very
are you
diplomatic.
done?
Shall I stop there, Chair?
Yeah.
I haven't answered all of it, but I'll
Thank
stop
you.
there.
USID. Sorry.
USAID, so that funding has been stopped. So we've worked with USAID. We've had a very, very, very good working relationship with, with the US, and USAID funded quite a lot of our work. So a lot of our missions into the US were funded partially by USAID. Unfortunately, that funding has been withdrawn. Yeah.
So, Honorable Constable, without asking a question, you were answered. So, so the CEO was prepared for you. Honorable members, we have exhausted the questions and answer on Westkro. So we hand over now to Salga to do their part. Thank you, Salga. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. As introduced initially, Itumeleng from the Small Town Regeneration Program under the guidance of the South African Local Government Association. Allow me to also appreciate the opportunity from the Standing Committee to have inviting us to be here today. Much appreciated. I must also be open and honest to say that we were also invited some time ago to Free State. They were saying that we see you running up and down, and we don't know what you are doing, how you are doing it, and what is it, and what is the objective of where it is all going. Members, as you would be aware, the Small Town Regeneration Program consists of the 4 provinces, which is your Eastern Cape, Northern Cape, Free State, and Western Cape. Of course, not the entire Western Cape. And of course, with 1 metro, which is Mangaung. And of course, the number of district municipalities that we are seeing. The program started, we can probably safely say, in around before 2008. And then it got organized in 2016, Beaufort West First Conference. We're on our way now to the 9th conference, which will be in this year. And then, of course, the 10th conference, which will be in the Western Cape next year. It started as the foundation, and then it morphed into what we call today the IGR Management Forum, of which we were about 5. And of course, with the different SALGO offices in these different provinces assisting the management forum, of which I'm the chairperson of. The objective is still what I would probably say is reviving the small town areas, particularly and focused on the Karoo region. Now, last year, at least at the Small Town Regeneration Conference, as we were seated there, the minister at that time, which was the Minister of Rural Development, managed to gazette the Karoo Spatial Development Framework, which means now we are what we would call a legal region.
for the Karoo. And that means now that you sit now in an area where you can have some form of what you would call a policy directive and a policy operations, basically. And now as that has happened, many structures and substructures have now been created to ensure that the program is continuing. We have also managed to get what we would call these different streams of these 4 provinces to work, albeit very slowly, albeit at times not well coordinated. But at least now what is keeping us in the broader memory of these 4 provinces is the fact that the management team is able to meet regularly and generate different programs. And as you would know, as I said, the objective is to revive what I think with the presentation of Renel also now here and makes it more relevant for us also to be here, is that how can you grow this region now? And what is it that we're aspiring for? I normally say to the team when we meet that, and at the initial meeting, that Bordeaux, I don't want to mention Dubai because I saw some negative things in Dubai, but the point I'm trying to say is that Bordeaux started somewhere, Chairperson. And we are modeling ourselves around that. And we would not, I hear still colleagues talking about the Karoo, the rooibos tea and all of that. But ours is to say there's more to the Karoo than that. And it is more known outside than rather inside. It's good to hear also that there's the Estro a program that is happening, and that is what we are recently championing now, both with the Minister of Tourism and of course with these 4 provinces in the Karoo. In fact, the Karoo region in itself. Now with the should I say the professionalization of what SALGA is trying to do, and of course last year also with the conference in Craddock, where we can now safely say, because of the gazetting of the Special Development Framework and getting that recognition, that we are now better placed to take the programs and the activities forward. The unfortunate part, Chair, is that this management forum is what I would call the founders. So which means there has not been what I would call a clear direction previously, but now there is at least. So the heavy lifting is being done by this team, this management forum that is trying to ensure, at least for this period, whilst we are still here, to take the work forward. Part of the issues, of course, is the end in collaboration that we are working with Coxstar, we're working with rural development, and of course, in the main private sector participation as well. Both of the should I say the Karoo routes, tourism routes, and all of that. And as you would know, most of these towns today, I would not want to use the word derelict, but we have become forgotten towns. And part of it is to revive that area. And we are as ambitious as we try to be with the Bordeaux concept with regard to that. Funding is still what we would call being done by the, should I say, the SALGA team or the SALGA structure, and of course with the Department of Rural Development and so on, to ensure that at least there's operations that is continuing. But now some good news are coming out in terms of a proper funding model for the SDR program and the SDR itself, with regard to the Special Development Framework. We are busy now saying to ourselves, strategy and the governance of the Karoo. And we'll be tabling at least the strategy document now at the next conference, which will be in October. We'll be presenting that. And that should be able to be also in a position to take us to what we would call our ambitious program of the catalytic revival programs of the entire Karoo. So that is where we are now, Chair, and the amount of work that has been done by the team, we have to also applaud that. And of course, the fact that at least you being the second province, noticing the work that is being done, and also appreciating that, but we would want to really see West Grow play a particular role, because I don't think we should really replicate things if it's not necessary. Because as I was listening to the colleagues of West Grow now here, if you can just find some form of collaboration, there would not be a need even for the Karoo development to have what the ultimate objective of it is to create an agency. And I don't think that would be necessary if you can have that in cooperation with these 4 provinces. And then they can just fill each other into where the weaknesses and the strengths are. But that is where we are. Let me give over. Maybe my colleague wants to also say a few words, because I don't think you'd want to come this far and not say anything. Thank you, Chair. Through you.
Good afternoon once again, Chairperson and also honorable members. The actual chairperson of the Karoo Management Forum has basically gone through our entire presentation just very briefly. So through you, Chair, could I get about 10 minutes just to right now take all the members through our slides as well? Because I've been seeing as you have been talking, Chairperson, I've been seeing some of the honorable members trying to find out where exactly you are in terms of our slides as well. So to begin with right now.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought you asked a question. Yeah. I think, yeah, spot on. Just if you can just give us a summary, 5 to 10 minutes, that will be fun, and then we can engage.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chairperson. So firstly, right now, we had also invited in our colleagues from the National Department of the Cooperative Governance to really speak about the National Small Towns Regeneration Program of Work, because there is no way to really speak about the actual Karoo small town regeneration work without also mentioning what's being done at a national level as well. So quite briefly, where the National Small Town Regeneration Strategy is coming from is firstly with the integrated urban development framework, which gets most of its mandate from the National Development Plan. And the key aim of the National STR program was firstly regeneration, restoration, and fulfilling the economic potential of underperforming small town. Also, its key aim was to then embracing the significance of small towns and the crucial role in larger hierarchy settlement. In terms of the mission, vision, and the objectives, it's there as well. I think I can skip over this. In terms of the national STR approach, there were really 4 key parts as well. Firstly, laying the actual groundwork, which then involved understanding what is really needed within each of those small towns. In terms of the second step right there, exploration, it was really around identifying what really matters most for each of those towns. And then from there, in terms of step 3, it was really creating what that actual plan was. And finally, the fourth aspect of this plan was around the actual implementation as well. And the key focus of that was really around resource mobilization as well. There's quite a strong link between the entire STR process and local economic development plans as well. So that was just what that started about. In terms of how far the national STR program has come from, it was launched in the 2022. In terms of its pilot phase within 2023 as well, Bergrivier in the Western Cape was actually chosen. It was then rolled out within 2024 as well, and they had focused on those Portland, Beaufort West, and also Llewellyn Dam as well. What Cocta wanted me to also mention is that under phase 2, all they were doing was to really help getting all of those task teams to actually work. So there was no other work. So from their mind right now, this is supposed to be an actual municipal-led work as well. And finally, in terms of phase 3 right now, they will be focusing on the Cedarburg region as well. In terms of their key drivers, it's really around an actual collaborative approach. It must be flexible, and there's that very strong link to those LED strategies as well. As the council had already mentioned, in terms of the entire Karoo region as well, we had begun this work in the Karoo Small Town Regeneration Conference in 2016 in Beaufort West, whereby municipalities within the Karoo region showed an interest to cooperate across provincial and municipal administrative boundaries, and they also proposed the actual development of the regional spatial development framework before the region could be gazetted as well. It firstly required letters of support from all four pioneers as well as council resolution from all 40 plus municipalities as well, which was achieved as well. As you mentioned, in terms of our Karoo IGR forum, these are the five our five key political heads of the Karoo IGR forum. As mentioned, Salga is also part of that committee, as is the National Department of Rural Development and Land Reform, COCTA, Tourism and Science, Technology and Innovation. Just for the Western Cape, you can see it's made up of the West Coast District, Central Karoo District, Garden Route, and finally Cape Winelands. When I did the slides, it moved around quite a bit, and you can see the actual geographic spread as well. In terms of our key implementation framework for this work, it is really then taken in from the Karoo Regional Spatial Development Framework, because that is our gazetted framework as well. As the chairperson had mentioned, we have hosted 8 Karoo conferences so far, and these are the various locations right now. As well, in terms of some of our key achievements to date, besides the actual gazetting of the Regional Spatial Development Framework, in terms of the work which other government departments have done, the National Department of Public Works and the Infrastructure is now working with 7 municipalities on their precinct development program, and they are focusing within the Karoo region. The Department of Science and Innovation has also focused their mapping innovation work, as well as their documenting the Karoo Journey project as well. Also in the Karoo, COCTA has been also prioritizing several Karoo towns as part of their small town regeneration program. Salga launched our own mapping catalytic projects in the Karoo, which we finished this year as well. And there is an actual current proposal right now for us to also host an actual Karoo investment summit sometime next year. In terms of the funding, as the chairperson mentioned, there's no real separate funding item for the entire Karoo region. It's being funded by each of those departments doing work within the region. So Salga pays for the conferences, Department of Rural Development paid for the Karoo Regional Spatial Development Framework, and Department of Tourism is paying for their plans within the area. So as we're trying to focus all the other government agencies to focus their resources within their entire Karoo region as well. Monitoring and evaluation, we have no formal M&E process at this point in time right now, because we are just getting going right now. In terms of some of the biggest challenges and risks we're facing, it's going to be climate change. The Karoo is a very arid region as well, so the whole increased risk of drought are quite a big issue as well. There's also as well population decline and also youth migration out of the entire Karoo region. Young people are moving to the bigger cities just because of the jobs as well. And finally, in terms of most of the other things which we speak about the Karoo, whether it's going to be Karoo lamb and all that, there are very few abattoirs within the Karoo region itself. So most of that secondary work must be done in the bigger towns outside of the Karoo. So it's quite a major risk as well. And some of the other key work we are doing is to really try to then increase some of this cross boundary work as well. So more specifically within the Western Cape itself right now, the West Coast District is now has now built a regional waste facility right now as well. So we have been assisting the West Coast as well to have an actual dialogue with 2 municipalities in the Northern Cape as well, so that they can also use that same waste disposal facility as well. So we're still ongoing, and there is one actual promising case, and the other one isn't too promising, but we're still under those actual discussion. And finally, as mentioned before, our 9th crew conference will be in Karibdam in the Free State as well, from the 21st until the 23rd of October this year. And this is our new logo as well, our crew region logo. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Ndade Manyige. I am going, before I allow members to ask questions, the CEO of Wescro did indicate to me that she would like to be excused at 3 o'clock. So I've just pleaded with her to share the business card with those gentlemen there at the back, because they definitely want to engage, to put a lot of their money, in the Central Karoo. So we welcome their, efforts in that regard, well in advance. Dr. Manyige, really thank you very much. Dumeling, thank you very much. Before I really open the floor for questioning, let me also just welcome this honest presentation, and I think also to the CEO of Wescro. Really thank you for opening our eyes and just giving us open, frank, presentation about the situation in the Karoo. But we definitely need some work to be done to, cancel those not and add some other numbers. Ndadi Dumele, from my side, I'm just concerned about the fact that you are running for the last couple of years, and yet you don't have monetary and evaluation. So my question really is, how do you measure then your success? The point that was made by Honorable Vessel was how then do we enhance Wescro's footprint, and I think that's where collaboration is definitely needed to really make sure that, all the work that is being done, in silos, really start show fruit. Wescro is here to partner with you. I think the DTET is also here to partner with you. The local government, I'm sure they are also here, to partner with you. There are infrastructure, department as well that was invited, and I'm sure they will be willing to partner with you. So I think the question really for me stands is, how do you measure then your success, over the years? Over to you, members, in terms of questions. I see Honorable Bryant and Honorable Bringace.
Chair, just very briefly, thank you for the presentation. Very comprehensive. I think I probably align myself with some of the comments made by yourself, Chair. But just in terms of your key focus area, regeneration, restoration, and fulfilling the economic potential of underperforming small towns. I mean, there's definitely a correlation between what we were discussing with Wescro and this, and I think there's huge potential for maybe more alignment here. I'm not entirely sure how that works. Maybe Mr. Tofi can give us some ideas, because I know you're very involved in that space. But maybe a start would be your conference in Free State in October. I'm not sure if anybody from Wescro has been invited, but perhaps that could be an opportunity to see where there are, some linkages that could be made. And also, I think one of the things we identified with Wescro earlier is that a lot of municipalities aren't really aware of some of the programs that are taking place, and maybe it's an opportunity to showcase those. But yeah, thanks. I don't have much else to add, but thank you.
Honorable Brinkes, followed by Honorable Ngondlo.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Chair, yes, thank you very much to Salga and the colleagues for the presentation. I was last week. I was with the Minister of Agriculture, Minister Meyer. We went to a town called Lutzville on the west coast. There was a colleague from Salga. His name is Mr. Peters van Skalbeek, if I'm correct. Van Niekerk. Oh, there you go. He mentioned at the expo that took place on the West Coast that that Salga is also, like you mentioned in your presentation, that the Salga is looking at the West Coast, reviving some of those forgotten towns there at the West Coast. Then he mentioned in specifically a program that they will be running regarding ocean things regarding oceanic aspects to that West Coast space. If if Salga can maybe elaborate more on that program that they will be running on the West Coast with regard to oceanic activity that they will be reviving there on that district, the West Coast district. That will be very much appreciated. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Brinkhuis, and hand over to Honorable Ngondlo.
No, thank you, Chair, and thank you to the presenters from Salga. Chair, I'm interested, perhaps, for the colleagues to just unpack what is entailed in this regional economic plans. Because when one looks at it, and I mean, if you look at the first conference is 2016, and we are almost 10 years now, it's the 9th year. We have got the different conferences, as it's been explained, which have been sitting, making decisions, and I think as the colleagues are raising risks, especially of population decline, because, all these grand plans that are supposed to ensure that, populations in those smaller towns are able to benefit and can be economically active, start moving, into cities because things are not happening. So if we're sitting in a planning phase or planning cycle of already 9 years, and people are not waiting for that 9 years, they are moving, as your presentation is almost saying. I'm interested to understand that what exactly are the things that through this regional program are supposed to be done, and when do those specific projects start? If you can explain, you talk about trying to find money from the infrastructure. What are the name of the projects? What are we talking about here? Because if one looks at one slide, I think slide 11, it's talk about the minister to designate the region that must be supported from the participating municipalities. I see that in terms of your report, in as far as the tables are concerned, it shows that the council did the approval already, I think 2 years ago, that is 2023, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of what is in the slides. So you got the council report, and in 2023 it says 4 premiers. I'm not sure whether it includes the Western Cape premier in terms of that approval. So where are we now? In the next conference you're going to in Free State, and I'm assuming conference is bringing in people, it's another meeting for people to discuss the plan that they've been discussing since 2016. So at what point is this beautiful project getting into implementation, and implementation that's going to bring economic benefit to that municipality and also economic benefit to the citizens of that community? Fortunately, I think you've been here when we were discussing, and Wesco was saying there is nothing much now that is coming from Karoo, and here you have been sitting, with a beautiful program, of integration of that particular a small town, and this speaks once again to this silo, lack of integration in the state, because here you are at a Salga level having conversations, but I'm not sure what is the alignment. Are you talking to the provincial local government department here in the Western Cape that is supposed also to be party to our environment and planning of the province? Because in the morning I was in the local government committee. They are busy there with the legislation, on the planning reforms, and I'm not sure to the extent this type of a project is going to be affected from a legislative point of view by such. So I think, Chair, great as it is, my worry is the planning or conception phase of our planning phase that we're still sitting with almost 10 years down the line. And I'm asking, when are things going to actually be put in place? And I agree with the colleague who already earlier said, you know, they had an idea of some agency to be formulated or governance structure. That indeed, there is a Westgro here in the Western Cape that is actually working very well with a governance structure. So I'm sure it's a question of trying to integrate whatever governance model of this, but that agency is there. Instead of wasting other 5 years to establish a particular structure, I am sure knitting things between this project and Westgro and driving this will be something that we want to see, because we want to see a central Karoo that is actually dealing with its own challenges, you know, of a Gini coefficient that is always, you know, very high because of the poverty levels that are in that particular area, because it's a highly poor sort of a municipality, a district. So I'm just asking those questions so that we try and understand, how do we, from this particular committee, when everything is said and done, how do we take this forward? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Ngontlo. Are we all covered? Honorable Vessel?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I agree with the sentiments of Member Nkondlo. And then I also just want to ask, with regards to the future funding and the current funding, I assume all the municipalities partake in this, but how have SALGA consulted with the various provincial treasuries? Because I know some of these municipalities that we speak about are in financial recovery plans. So although I think it's a brilliant idea and a brilliant initiative, I'm just struggling to understand what has happened in the last 9 conferences that was held, and how you foresee this going forward. How is all of these municipalities that is involved, what is their financial status? Surely that should be the starting point of it all. If they're going to fund it, they should be able to afford it. And I just did a quick little Google research, and very few to know of these municipalities are financially stable. So just want to understand how we foresee this going forward then. Thanks.
Thank you. Over to you, Ndate Tumeleng.
Thank you, Chair. I think probably it would be safe to start with your input with regard to the monitoring. To safely respond to that, Chair, would be to say that the monitoring happens what we would call annually at the conference. Is it systematic? No. But what has happened, if you look at it, not chronological, but if you look at it from event driven, started as the foundation. Now we've got this forum. It was deliberately cited as the IGR forum so that it doesn't really morph into something new, but rather what was presented in the report of that collaborative approach. You would not want something that comes and add more to bureaucracy. And that is why we are here where we are. Now, if you would go to the, probably that would align to the, I think it's Honorable Rand, about the alignment. That's why specifically we are dealing with it in that fashion. When DC
for not responding to you appointed today.
Point of order, Honorable Ngontlo.
Okay. I still remember one chair, whenever he starts, he gives the protocols of a virtual meeting. But anyway, The alignment, Honorable Brand, is what we are trying to do now. Yeah. Now, if you check remember the consultation, Honorable Vessels, it started with way back before we can even say before this last administration, national administration, with the 4 premiers, where we were just consolidating the Karoo into what we call today a region. Today, in terms of legislation, it is a region. Now comes the alignment part. So what this management forum then is doing, or what the management forum with Salga is doing, is to say now, and then remember, it went through all of these 40 councils. They had to make resolutions about it. Hence, today you said with the Karoo Spatial Development Framework. So now the work is there, not the work, but now the policy objective or the policy perspective is there. Our work now as the management forum is how are we going to implement it? Last conference said, are we going to be an addition to government, or are we going to be project-led driven? We agreed on a project-led driven. That is why for the first time at the 9th conference today, we are going to have a catalytic project conference, where in all the provinces that have participated last year, what projects are those districts and municipalities having, so that we can bring in partners, both from what is the one in Free State, they had an investment conference where they also invited us. That development agency will also be able to come in and to see how they can come in with private players to assist those areas for the project development or the project development processes. I think the one of the Oceanic, my colleague, Manyike, is he will be able to respond to that one. And I want to also emphasize the one, Honorable Brand, of the alignment, because that is why we were saying deliberately, and that is what we're going to go back and say, that at least for the Western Cape, Free State, there's what we would call a form of well-organizing. So we don't need to duplicate or bring something new in. All what we just need to do, coordinate these activities so that they can run with it. The one on the Honorable Nkondle, how can these grand plans work for small towns? If you check the 2 projects, if you go, for instance, to the Northern Cape, you look at the SKA. Part of the spin-off of that is the astrotourism. Today, because of the work that we've been able to do, it is part of the actual beneficiation program that young people in those areas are benefiting from that astro program. So that is where these grand plans are going. Now, the other issue in terms of the infrastructure and the funding of it, there's an opportunity now with National Treasury for that as well. So if we can position ourselves with regards to that, all the well, but we want to do it in a way that is rather collaborative rather than just saying that this is what we are spearheading with regards to that. And then, of course, the last part also of Honorable Vessels, how do we see going forward, particularly in terms of, look, I'm not an expert on fiscal policy, on Honorable Vessels, but most of governments are strained today. But one thing, what I have learned of this small town regeneration program is that you want some form of consistent economic activity in those small towns. At a particular point in time, they were there. Some of them, either they what do you call it, they went down. If you look at other small towns, if I just do name names out, probably Northern Cape and Western Cape, these projects or these programs or these tourism activities were there. All what we are saying is that revive those that we have found there in those small towns so that they can have that opportunity again. Going forward for this is really in the main to say that the 4 provinces, you've got now your region policy perspective, you've got your legal framework that you've been wanting for. Build on that now. And how do you build on it? Bring these different private and public sectors together and public players together so that they can ensure that at least the first one of the 9th conference will be able to speak to something more tangible rather than just what we would call now, if we would go back to the monitoring issue, that the part of the success that has come out now, the Karoo is now a fully fleshed region. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, as well. Just to also add in, to add in a few points right now. Just going back to what the second question was around our involvement with the Westgro as well. So outside of the Kru region, as Salga Western Cape, we are working quite closely with Westgro as well. The Westgro CFO came to our previous Salga PEC meeting as well. We also had a joint meeting with both with Salga and Westgro with the Central Karoo as well, because much like yourselves right now, we have also realized that there's really a lack of actual development and a lack of actual projects coming from there as well. So we had gone there just to really speak to them as well, to also see how can we also help them in terms of getting far more projects in part of that as well. In terms of the questions, honorable member, are around the oceans economy. So Petrus Hanikak is the one leading on this area of work. But what our plans are for that region is within Q4 of the financial year as well. What we are hoping to do is for us to host an actual oceans economy localization workshop with the West Coast districts and all of their local municipalities as well. And it's really around us localizing what is involved within the oceans economy space as well, so that every single municipality can see their role within the much broader oceans economy as well, where whether they're focusing on the boat building or on fishing and all the other industries which you can build up from those primary industries as well. So that's our key focus, and to develop an oceans economy localization plan, if I do remember correctly from what our targets are for the year. Thanks, Chairperson.
See, Honorable Tofi has got some answers. Before I give over to you, I just want to make maybe a comment that maybe one of the areas that Salka you need to look at is creating what I will call a small special economic zone in terms of really trying to address these issues of, unemployment and challenges of the Central Karoo and other, rural areas that you want to regenerate, But I'm not saying that, create this big monster thing, but just a small special economic zone with a focus, a particular focus area. But I mean, you will know what really a specific rural area will really thrive on what, and so forth. I'm going to hand over to DDG Tofi. I see you wanted to make a comment, and if you can also wrap up, because I think we come to a conclusion. Are there other hands? Maybe follow up? No other follow up. So you can really make your contribution, and you got a follow up question as well. Can I allow him to do a follow up, and then you can? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for the response from
My hand is up, Chair.
Noted.
Can I proceed?
Yeah.
Am I protected?
You're protected.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, if the again, thank you very much for the colleagues from Salga. If I can get an indication of that workshop, by when will that workshop take place on the West Coast? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Honorable Ngontla. You are protected. You can speak.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I am sure in a Women's Month, there is no way that I cannot be protected. Chair, I think the issue raised by Member Vessels, I think perhaps it's a matter for anywhere how this project presented to us. We would need to maybe indeed get some guidance with the provincial treasury, because indeed we were in Central Karoo and Beaufort West in particular, in as far as the financial situation of that particular municipality. And I see in the slide actually on funding that Salga does mention that there should be some joint creditworthiness of the municipalities, so I think that becomes important, to understand, also looking at the financial governance of such municipalities within the broader framework now, of the province. So I think it's something important for me to understand. But I also wanted to know the what is being mentioned in the West Coast as this regional waste facility. This cost of transport, what are we talking about in terms of quantum, and who is involved in the conversation of the feasibility of this project being mentioned? And safe to say, Chair, I think my biggest issue, which is what at least I wanted to hear about specifically in the Central Karoo, there is a mention of, I think, Salga doing project mapping of the catalytic projects in the Karoo. I'm not sure whether that process has been done or is still at elementary stages, because indeed, when all is said and done, what we are interested in is that what are the projects? Are the projects that have already been identified in Karoo, have they already been packaged, to check, investor readiness of those projects, which I think Westgrow has been doing with across municipalities to help municipalities on how to package projects so that they are investor friendly and investor ready, both in terms of domestic and international investors. So I think those gray areas becomes very important, to understand, so that indeed a grand initiative of this nature, it becomes much more clearer even from us when it's presented, of what we're talking about, and being specific on the projects, of what makes this revitalization of Central Karoo. Is what exactly are you talking about? What are the names of the projects? Where are they geographically? What is the cost of those projects? What is to be realized in those projects, especially because there is a growth for jobs strategy, and how potential jobs, both direct and indirect, can actually be honed in that future growth for job strategy, so that also the local players in the province that has to help and contribute, are actually also actioned in that regard. So I think it was just those last comments I wanted to make on the matter in this presentation. Thank you so much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Nkondlo. One last mention that I forgot to do, honorable members. With us here is Westcross Company Secretary and Tokoso Langa. Can you just, with a show of hands, that members can see you? Thank you for really attending our meeting and sitting patiently without saying, I have not been recognized, honorable member. Okay, and the other two, over to you.
Thank you very much. And Chairperson, my colleague Khotso Marudi also arrived a little bit later. That's him over there. Seeing we're acknowledging people. I'm going to ask Faye, who heads up our economic unit, to make a comment on how we could be involved, and then I'll make a closing remark. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Rashid. So I think I'm really heartened to hear Memo Nkundlu's comments, because I think the department and the standing committee is starting to speak very much the same language. And what she's raised about the specificity of what we require to come out of those plans is the hook that I think the provincial departments certainly require. At the best of times, even within the province, trying to work transversely across districts is tough. And you are asking 12, 13 departments and agencies to also direct their resources, their technical expertise, their capacity in a focused fashion, and it needs to be sequenced. So the challenge with trying to do that cross-border with provinces is you can imagine quite a feat if you can pull it off. And so I think that certainly when it comes to the Karoo small regeneration projects, it is a little bit also we need to be putting the mask on for yourself before you are going to be able to help the passenger next to you. And so certainly our focus in the Central Karoo has been about the Central Karoo municipalities, the capacity building, the business environment support. How do you stimulate and create the correct ecosystems in and around the business community? So there's a plethora of projects and programs underway that can be accessed. But the challenge here is, particularly with this regeneration program, is it's gone well right up to the planning stage. So there's a blueprint, but nobody is able to get a hook into the blueprint around the technicalities of how this is actually going to go work in terms of a rollout. And a very good point I think that the members have actually raised is the resourcing. If the 4 provincial treasuries are not on the same page about how they want to tackle this, already you're looking at an incredible mountain to climb. Because we come as sector departments with our budgets that we only have a mandate to spend in the Western Cape. And so how do we tackle the joint projects? So we could very easily perhaps spend a little bit more time talking about the planning of what happens in the individual spaces, and then pick one pilot project that you actually want to do jointly and figure out the path. But I think that the inputs in and around the ability to set up an agency, those are big ideas. Agencies in very self-demarcated areas like municipalities have failed over the last 2 decades. So we need to be realistic about agencies cross-border, funded by who, managed by who, oversight by who. So those are just, I think, some of the challenges that we have had when looking at how one supports a program of this nature. So in the first instance, certainly from the sector department side in the Western Cape, we look at supporting the Western Cape municipalities inside that program. And so that's just one commentary around that particular program. But perhaps just going back to the earlier conversation, and one additional comment is the following. The uptake of local opportunities is influenced by, aside from the sector it sits in and the location that it sits in and the enabling environment around it, it's really very much influenced by willingness and take-up. And so I think WesGrow, the department, has alluded to the fact that if we put supply-side support programs in place, the uptake by, and when I say the locals, could mean local business people, local civil society, local municipalities. It's just not, we're not getting the traction on the supply-side support programs. And so it could be said, oh, you're producing generic ones. No, actually we don't. We look at the districts, we look at the localities that we are talking about, but the uptake is still not coming. And then you've got to look deeper into that. It's the capacity issues. It's both competency as well as capacity. Seats on bums on seats, sorry. And so in the Central Karoo, certainly we cannot ignore that a third element is you need executive stability. You need political stability because it affects administrative stability. And so the challenge on a completely administrative and a program and project level is you need staying power to see that particular project which you've put on the table and you're committed to prioritizing that, actually staying the course. And I think that those are some of the more intangible challenges, which is really difficult to convey when one is asked, why are you not doing more projects, programs, looking at business opportunities in areas like, whether it be the Central Karoo, whether it be parts of the West Coast. Those are elements that needs to be considered. And that's what the Central Karoo administrative layer is really struggling to drive home. And so the linkage certainly between some of the impact that WesGrow is achieving both in the investment space, trade space, and tourism space is that there's an element of development work that needs to be done in those sectors, in the localities, before WesGrow can take up and fly. But that development work, these are the challenges that it's facing. And so the summit that we had in July was really to look at, in tourism and investment, what are the tourism value propositions that actually exist in the locations, in the 5 districts and the metro, and then how does one tease and develop and mature that? And the same thing on the investment side. How do we start creating an investment pipeline? And so certainly in the Central Karoo, By way of example, it might not be gas exploration because it's tied up into so many other elements at a national level, but it could very well be renewable energy. You've got independent power producers active in that locality, and that is perhaps an area to be teased at. But last comments. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable members, it feels like we should have asked them to caucus first, before they come to the meeting. But yeah, I think brilliant input. I feel like when you were speaking, like I'm reading the response that I got, written question to the Minister of Economic Development and Tourism. But I think before I really ask Rashid to close, we've got economic, environmental and economic development from the local government. Mr. West, and maybe he might want to make an input, and also Dr. Greiling, if there are any inputs or thoughts that you want to really share with regards to the work being done in this work of regeneration of these towns and cities. Mr. West? Anyone? Any take?
Thanks, Chair. Now, I've got my team. If you will allow, I would allow Alan to make a comment or two. But just to thank the colleagues for the presentation, especially the one on the small town regeneration. We are working on a space of, let's say, underserviced towns through the RCEP program. And we are already seeing areas of collaboration as well in that space. And obviously, with us working on the provincial SDF, any initiatives of the sort that are talking to or having implications in the spatial development perspective are of interest. So the Karoo regional SDF, should it fly, is going to be one of the, I think, groundbreaking planning instruments that are cross-cutting in provinces and in municipal political boundaries. So it is an area that we are looking at with keen interest, and I think we'll be keeping in the loop with the colleagues from SALGA to see how the space transforms, and also to start defining regions in the approach that we are already framing with our approach of the Western Cape PSDF. So I think I'm just going to allow my colleagues, I've got the colleagues, program manager from the RCEP program, which is more hands-on involved in terms of the projects. And I think in the conference that talks to catalyst projects, we might have a useful input in that space. And I have Alan from the Spatial Planning Department or the Directorate, who is more keen on the spatial aspects and the Western Cape SDF side. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to maybe add to what the colleagues from SALGA have mentioned, that we as the province were very involved in the development of the Karoo Regional Spatial Development Framework. And in fact, the Premier submitted final comments on that, I think in 2021 or 2022. And one of the comments raised or concerns was that the institutional structures that were proposed for implementing this thing were too complex. And my biggest worry is what is now happening is that they are too complex for such a low resource context. But if I can just make a recommendation, there needs to be regular meetings checking in, and there needs to be M&E. And in fact, the Karoo RSDF document itself does have a monitoring and evaluation framework that's developed that sets out the kind of implementation path. But in order to engage, we need to have the regular engagements. And I do think that's kind of fallen off the table since the plan was adopted. But that's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. West. Dr. Greiling, do you have any input?
Sorry, Chair, I see Mr. Wust also wants to come in.
Oh, sorry,
So let me
Mr.
just
Bruce, sorry.
Just maybe to add, Chair, I think there's a lot of smaller initiatives that's developing in province. And as our Chief Director mentioned, the RCEP program, the Regional Socioeconomic Program, but there's also the township action plans that we are doing with the Department of Economic Development. And I think there's a lot of potential for Western Cape specific initiatives to benefit small and medium towns. So that's just a general remark from my side. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you. Thank you, Chair. We work very closely with all the colleagues. Yes, I do want to underline that we're here to work with SALGA in terms of this, but I have to underline also what Faye has said in terms of the challenges with regard to the specific project. But I'd also like to put the shared services model on the table when it comes to such a project as the Central Karoo, because that is the kind of model that we've been using in less resourced municipalities. So maybe that's also something that we need to look at. And I think we've had the conversation even with environmental affairs and development planning when it comes to complex matters such as air quality and waste management. So just to put that on the table. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I am going to, maybe before you close, and that Tofi, I'm going to allow Wescrow either through secretary, company secretary, or the chief finance officer to just make closing remarks, and then Salka, and then Ndate Tofi.
No, thank you, Chair, for the opportunity for Westcrow to address the forum and to showcase the work that is being done within the agency. What we're beginning to appreciate is that there's appreciation across the ecosystem of the work that needs to be done at the municipalities that require some assistance. I'm hoping with the right partners, we'll be able to find each other in terms of what's the right path forward. The conversations have started with Salga. We've met the district municipality in question when at the time we realized that there's a combined and joint effort required to move that municipality forward. It can happen without them doing their part, but we do believe that there may be a role for each player in this room to play a part. But thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you, Ndate Tofi. Ndate Tumede.
Then I come.
Thank you very much. Honourable Member, in terms of that Oceans Economy plan, we're planning it within Q4. So in our mind, that's between January and March 2026. We haven't yet pinned down a date. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I think, Chair, just quickly also, to start with Mr. West calling for regular engagements. I must be honest with you, Chair. I didn't want to come here because we've been complaining for the last 2 years that we don't have what I would call, or what he calls, regular meetings with different provinces. But then I said, here's an opportunity, good opportunity for the legislature to be engaged in what the work we are doing. And that is why we are seated here today, Mr. West, because we would want to ensure that it happens in this particular fashion, that we don't need more copied things or copycats and all of that. To not respond to Faye raises a very important issue. Before the RSDF was gazetted, we said with two options, either the IGR model or the agency model. For those very same reasons, we rejected the agency level. It has been what do you call it? It has been tested, it has failed, and whatever. There's a negative connotation to the agency and all of that. That is why we are focusing on the IGR route in the main, because we would want to see that there are provinces like here now, and what I've mentioned, especially in the Free State, that are doing work. We don't need to go and put an extra layer on it. All we need to do is, I think someone mentioned here, the investment pipeline. I think it's Honorable Nkondlo, the investment pipeline. For the first time at this conference, we will be having an investment catalytic projects of the 4 provinces. But we don't have the, should I say the...
On a point of order, Ndate Tumede, the brief was just to make closing remarks.
Sorry?
The brief was to give us a closing remarks.
Oh, I mustn't respond. Okay, then thank you. Thank you then. Okay.
Just closing remarks, please. We will write to you and ask for more information. That I think there's a lot that we're going to be...
because of time, thank you, I'm done.
Yeah. So your closing remarks?
I'm saying I'm done, Chair.
You're done. Okay, thanks. Ndate Tofi?
Thank you, Chairperson and members. Thank you all for being here today. I want to just share a quick experience. When I attended an Oceans Economy meeting in Pretoria, one of the things I realized was that when a program like this is cross-sectorial, it's not owned by any particular department. And oceans economy was one example. And the only way we landed it is I, as DDG in Western Cape, decided to just convene an oceans economy meeting and how it impacted on us. Because going to the meeting in Pretoria each week was this plethora of departments all sort of vying for some attention. So I would think that we should do a similar thing maybe for the Karoo, how it impacts on us, because I'm intrigued by what's possible. I want to say that one of the superpowers of this Western Cape government is our ability to reduce the red tape or make what we call ease of doing business, or reducing the binding constraints on a project. But the best way to do that is project by project. So, and our convening power is, I think, what we do well. So when I had a farm project that was stuck, I was able to call head of department of your department, head of department of your department of agriculture, and in one meeting with a client, we solved their problem very quickly. And I'd love to see this Karoo project broken down into your top 10 most important projects. And if it has any impact on the Western Cape, I can promise you we could have 10 meetings, one for each, bringing together one meeting with each of the relevant departments. And I just want to know, what do you need from each of us, and try to sort it out in a 2-hour meeting. If it was an energy project or a tourism project or something. And I think I'd love to see this whole Regeneration Karoo project sort of broken down into your top 10 most lucrative projects. And I would commit to call 10 meetings to try and sort those out for you, and then locate those projects in the relevant departments who should own them, because it needs to go from the sort of ether of a kind of concept of a Karoo project and land somewhere, because somebody kind of needs to own them, you know. So I know that would be my sort of closing comments, and to thank you again, Chairperson, for calling for this meeting, because I think what you've done is you've activated our minds, and we remain on standby to support you as best we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've realized that, initially I thought that politicians are the ones that speaks a lot, but we've got more politicians this side than this side. But really, thank you. Just my closing remarks from my side. Salga, from your presentation, obviously, your challenges of sorting out the M&E framework. And one area is you say you don't have any legislative or policy implication on the Karoo area. We'll really maybe make a resolution to consider, just briefing us when are you going to really look into that. Really, from our side, thank you very much. You are excused, and there are some, do you want to just explain the refreshment part?
Certainly, Chairperson. There are refreshments being served in the members' lounge. I think the committee is just going to wrap up its business, and then they will meet you there shortly. Thank you.
And you can also join the investors there. They bring in lots of money, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tofi, thank you very much. We'll see you just now. sorry. Honorable members, we came to that part of our meeting, which is to look at the resolutions that are coming out of this debate. I do not know if, Shireen, you have got some resolution that you have jotted down. Okay, Honorable Brand, I saw your hand.
Actually, the only thing was, I'm not sure if it was Honorable Nkondo or no, it wasn't. It was the CEO who mentioned the idea of maybe getting presentations per district. Now, I think that could be, if we are going to get Wesgro back at some stage, with some form of a plan that can be monitored as we requested, perhaps that should then include a presentation from each of those districts in terms of, you know, what their challenges are and what they're focusing on.
I see Honorable Vessel is itching to speak.
Yeah, I just want to add maybe to Member Bright. I don't even think it's necessary to get Wesgro in that same sort of room. I think it's just for us understanding what it is that the different districts, how they foresee tourism in their municipal framework, and measuring that up to what we have in the presentation from Wesgro already. So that would actually be interesting to see. And I think that might actually guide a lot of our Karoo towns as well, that is now a part of this SALGA thing. Because obviously the district municipality that governs them also has they should have a vision that they obviously presented to Wesgro as well.
Yeah, I think I'm really fully in support of your suggestions, colleagues. But what I'm also thinking is that are we not going to require a whole day session? Because if we bring how many municipalities that could think of in the province? 6.
But also maybe scattered over a period of time. I mean, it doesn't all have to happen now, you know. We've got, I don't know, I just think it's worthwhile contemplating.
Okay.
Or road trip.
All right. Yeah, no, I do agree. But I was thinking that Wesgro being part of this meeting would be worthwhile. They don't have to bring their whole entourage, but at least have a representative during that discussion. Yeah, because that will address the point that was made that, you know, appreciation of this ecosystem. That, you know, Honorable Brinkes and Honorable Ngondlo, I see your hands.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, in terms of what Salga was also speaking about the West Coast and reviving those ghost towns there on the West Coast. If we could, as a committee, also, you know, in terms of our oversight throughout the Western Cape, go visit those municipalities, Cederberg in particular, and even the Matsikama, to visit those municipalities and to go see for ourselves what Salga is speaking about in terms of reviving those ghost towns. I think that will give us a much more in-depth understanding of what they are doing on the ground and how it is impacting on the lives of the people there. So I know the official of Salga mentioned that in the fourth quarter, that is next year, January, that particular project in terms of reviving the oceanic projects there on the West Coast, it will be kicking off in the fourth quarter. So if our committee also can focus on that fourth quarter and go see for ourselves what they are actually doing on the ground in reviving those ghost towns, then we will also get a much better understanding of how it is impacting on the lives of those people there. Thanks, Chair.
I also think that maybe in some areas that we'll visit, we'll do a joint visit with the local government, because we borderline local government issues here sometimes. So maybe we can really do a joint visit. Honorable Ngondlo?
No, thank you, Chair. You actually took the words off my mouth. That I think this work, particularly that has to do with how our regional economies or local economies needs to step up, cannot take place indeed without our partner local government. And we know by now, if we ask the question about LEDs are at most, and I can say this with some authority, because I recall having sent a question, around LED units. There, we've got serious challenges in municipalities because the function of local economic development is not taken serious, is not viewed as a serious economic function that must be that must be capacitated with people who have got the type of understanding of the economy as we would talk about a Westgro in this instance. People who understand that they are supposed to assist municipalities build their investment capability, put together projects, and. So I think this work is going to be important, or else we're always going to be sitting here talking about these municipalities, worried about what is happening in those municipalities. And every time towards the end of the year, we get a pero, and the mero is going to be, a 0.1% increase in their inequality or poverty. So I'm just saying, I think it's important, Chair, that we really do this work jointly, and we get local government helping us to get to a point where LEDs are really, pulling up their socks, so that whatever can be done by Westgro, by DDET, has got the LED offices under the MMs taking themselves and taking their local economies very serious. So I think for me, that is very important for us to do. And indeed, Westgro has done very well by actually bringing in the district work that they are doing. And indeed, they are not responsible for those districts, and we're finding ourselves sometimes trying to even overload them. But I think the other big piece of the puzzle needs to come from the municipalities themselves. So I think that conversation is important. Secondly, Chair, I think we need to inquire with our own DDET. That for me, I think, is there anywhere where we can be able to draw data that actually demonstrate, in rent terms or value, the extent to which the likes of the halal, yes, we've contributed, we've said people, here is how they get certified and everything else. But for me, it is not enough. The same way we can't be talking about rooibos. We know now we can be able to quantify what is the value of rooibos in terms of the demand, but also we can be able to say in the province, where is it and what spin-offs does it have? So I want us to be able to get that quantifiable data, that tells us, the market opportunity of halal, the market opportunity of Karoo lamb, so that we start understanding how that particular value is deriving back, benefit to our provincial economy and true to the local economies. So maybe Westgro must help us to find where can we get, whether that's data we're going to get from Stats SA or any other place, but we need to get that information. It can't be we spend investment in trying to build or contribute, to the industry, and then the next thing we say, no, it's part of everything, and we can't even quantify it. So I think that's a second area that I wanted us to sort of check. And then lastly, on the SALGA one, I think perhaps indeed work needs to be done, and we may want to ask for some kind of report and update on this Karoo revitalization project. At this point, it seems, it's really spending lots of time, sitting in conferences, sitting in workshop, ideation, about what needs to happen. up until we can speak specifically about what are the projects, where are those projects, how do you build, I think, investment interest towards those projects, because it makes then it easier both for our infrastructure department that already is able to consolidate those. It helps our provincial treasury. It helps also the municipality. So I think we need to try, if for any oversight on our side, is to get that right, but also at the same time deal with the issue of fiscal governance, that in any way we mustn't talk about things as if we in this particular province are not interested. And one of the things we've always been focusing on is to ensure that that element of fiscal governance, is something that is protected. So when we talk about municipalities, and all these grand ideas, we must speak about the grand ideas, but also drawing into the fact that those particular problems, that have been identified that are fiscal in nature, must actually find space where they get to be prioritized, even in these grand plans, and they get to be resolved.
Thank you, Honorable Ngondlo. You got the essence. Yeah. So, colleagues, can we move quickly to adoption of the minutes and quarterly report and updated business plan? There is one set of minutes from the 18th June 2025. Can I move for adoption? Can I move?
I propose, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're done with that one. So can we go to I was told that I mustn't say. Okay, quarterly report. Do you want to run with it quickly? Do you want to run with it quickly?
Okay. Okay, members. Not going to. Please mute.
Okay. Where's the report? What's the bins?
The IT.
Colleagues? The way you can't mute.
Stop sharing quickly.
Can you hear me, members? Okay. Oh, because you stopped sharing.
It unmuted someone.
Okay. So, colleagues, this is the first quarter report. Are you able to show it? It's so small, so I can't read. So, can you just maybe go through it?
Okay, members, this is the committee's quarterly report for the period April to June 2025. There were some meetings. 1st of April, 22nd of April, which was the agri stakeholder engagement. The 20th of May was the briefing on quarter 4. And then the budget on the 4th of June, 2 votes. And then the last meeting on the 18th of June, the minutes which we just adopted now, was also a quarterly performance briefing by the Department of Agriculture. In terms of attendance, there's the members' attendance table. I'm sure members had a chance to go through this. The apologies specifically for the 25th of April, member Brinke's, member Wessels, and there was quite a lot. So, yeah. And then there were a couple of meetings that was postponed, particularly this meeting was postponed 2 times. We had no legislation. We had 1 oversight visit, and that was Constantia. And then the appropriation bill. And that is the budget as at the 30th of June, budget allocation of 186,000, actual expenditure to date, 13,900 and the available budget for the rest of the financial year. Baie dankie, voorsitter.
Thank you. Colleagues, can I get a mover to adopt the report? Honorable Vessel and Honorable Brinkhuis. Thank you. What else?
The updated business plan with those changes, Chair.
Okay, you want to go through it? Technology. You got it. Just show it up on the screen. Okay.
Try just to make it a little bigger. Members, the only change with the updated business plan here compared to the one that was adopted in the previous quarter was that the next meeting, the chairperson has decided to focus on the special economic zones. So I think members will recall that there's been numerous resolutions in our tracking document, including the process of establishing an SEZ. So that's all being put into one meeting. So the focus for the next quarter would be on Atlantis and on the Saldanha Bay. Although Saldanha Bay Special Economic Zone or Industrial Development Zone will be much later in November. So the next meeting on the 19th of August would focus on Atlantis and include a quarter one update as well, which is a very short. I think members may appreciate the fact here that we're really trying to clear our tracking document. So the next committee meeting after the 19th of August will be on the 16th of September. And that will also be a quarter one briefing. And yeah, I think members will recall on the 4th of June, there was a resolution from Member Nkondlo about the ideal budget of the Department of Agriculture. And so before we go into adjustment period, Chairperson had deemed it appropriate to have the Department of Agriculture come and brief us. 14th of October, annual reports kick off. We do not have our dates confirmed yet, but I would share that with members when it becomes available. November, we deal with the adjusted budgets, and the members will see highlighted in yellow is the Freeport Saldanha presentation. And that takes us to the end of the calendar year, and Chairperson has proposed that the Matsikama visit, and then we can actually link it to your resolution that you've just made now, Member Brinkhuis, to focus on water, Lodwar, maybe jointly with local government. She spoke about Cederberg Nature Reserve, but plans around that would be shared with members. And then the next one is the Amalienstein Vikral visit, which is Lady Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's it. And then obviously there's the SOPA happening, and projects would have to be identified in the George area. And we go into budget again and the end of the financial year. So just so that members know, changes are the special economic zones. That's going to be the focus for the next quarter. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Just the last from my side is that I've spoken to the speaker with regards to our international tour. He did indicate to me that they are working on it, considering a joint visit. I do not know which other portfolio committee will be joining. Areas that they've been looking at is Dubai. So yeah, so that's our discussions. He's also trying to ensure that it's done within this year, because next year obviously is election, and we might be tied up in terms of finding, the approvals to go on an international study tour. So that's really the feedback on the study tour. Thanks very much, colleagues. I think the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you, Sherry. Bye, Danny.